All right. And so, yeah, so I'll just start off by saying, thank you for having me here. My name is Neil Donaldson, AKA Logic. Logic is the name that I had since like high school. I am very much familiar with the Vaughn and Oakwood community, as I've lived in that area for like over 20 years. I live downtown now, but still have like family. My mom still lives out there, and I'm very much connected to Little Jamaica and the NIA Center and a lot of endeavors that are happening within the community. The Vaughn and Oakwood community is where I started all the works that I do, all the community stuff. So I started an organization called Stolen from Africa. We are a Black arts education organization here in Toronto, and we focus on cultural and historical awareness of Africa, the African diaspora, and youth empowerment. And we do that through workshops within schools, community events. We attend a lot of festivals, and also just creating spaces for dialogue. Our whole movement organization is founded on dialogue, and through dialogue, that's how we gain deeper understandings of each other. So being invited to speak here for me was no brainer. I know that COVID and a lot of the circumstances and things that we've been experiencing has been incredibly challenging. So any way that I can like offer a lending hand, I'm always open to that. And I'm always interested in hearing people's experiences as well. Right off the top, I'll start by saying that we all are experts in our experiences. So even though I may be the one facilitating, I see this as a collaboration type of opportunity. So yeah, so that's a little bit about myself. Let me see here if I can. Oops. All right, so here's a quote that I always start off my sessions with a quote from Malcolm X, and it really sums up, I guess, a lot of like my own philosophy and just what my intentions are with pretty much everything that I do. Those are photos of my children, by the way. That's Leah and Michaela. So this is a quote that says, "Ignorance of each other is what has made unity impossible in the past. Therefore, we need enlightenment. Light creates understanding, understanding creates love, love creates patience, and patience creates unity." So, whenever I hear this, I'm like, this is exactly what it is. And I love like I call this practical wisdom for tangible change. It's a very sequence where we get to the option or the destination of unity rather. And, I feel like that's something that's what we need right now. There's so much emotion, so much, like polarity and opinions and perspectives. And I think what keeps me going through all of it is remembering humanity and remembering that everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have, knowledge-wise and so on and so forth. And it requires, enlightenment about each other, understanding, and then, through understanding, we have love, and then love creates patience, and patience is a really important element when it comes to change, when it comes to bringing people together and unity. So I love this quote because it just kind of like sets the stage, All right. So the rundown is just, my intentions here is really just to, create space where we can just share our experiences during COVID, identify challenges, and then, reflect on solutions based on our experiences. As I mentioned before, we are all like experts in our experiences. I can share what I've experienced and some things that have been working for me, and then hopefully that inspires you all to share things as well. So I really see this as a collaborative approach. A lot of things that I do is really coming from like an Afrocentric philosophy where we're inclusive. It's not the top-down association, but we kind of sit in a circle. So yeah, so we'll just set it off like that. Okay, so I'll just get like right into it. And I think like during what I've experienced during COVID, there's been such like this like performative I guess like presentation of things. Like we're supposed to just kind of like tough it up and just pull through and make things happen. And like I remember in the beginning stages, where things were just really like chaotic and just, really in the unknown. There was like this whole idea of just like, just like tough it up and really showing people that like, you're strong and resilient and all these different things. And, after a while, I realized that while that's great, one of the flip sides to resilience is that we don't have the opportunity to really sit and be with our experiences, our emotions, and that's why I kind of wanted to start off with this meme here, where it says, it's like during this third wave, it's okay if you feel disconnected, nothing is holding your interest, still hurting from the past, not able to study or even work or any other kind of like responsibilities, need a break from who you're staying with. There's so many different dynamics that we're going through. And lastly, you're not doing things that you wanted to do. So I know someone like myself who leads an organization, has 2 kids, and a lot of people like rely and depend on me for answers and guidance and all of that. It's a lot. So I know for me, like during COVID, I went through so many different kinds of emotions, where I put myself aside, and just in the name of trying to make sure that everybody else is good. But then there's moments where I just can't do this. And, there's a reason why, like, I keep my phone on silence, I don't like answering to bells and whistles and stuff. And there's just so much going on, like, especially with social media. And so I realized that, hey man, like it's okay to feel off. I don't have to be in this performative space. And what has helped me is to create space where I can like articulate that and to speak about it. So hopefully that is something that we can get to through our dialogue here. Yeah, well, I'll get into some more of my more experiences, but let's just kind of keep the conversation and energy going. So with those who are here with us right now, maybe if you can just like say your name and maybe share one word that would describe like your experience during COVID. Let's just keep this energy circulating and initiate some conversation. And yeah, so I'm curious to know like how would you describe that based on your experiences? Just one word, or if you have 2, you can say 2 if you like. But yes, hand up. Go ahead, Prophetess.
Discrimination.
Discrimination. Okay. Well, okay. So before I continue, this is something that I always do with my sessions. Is I'm going to tie this in with a check-in as well. So discrimination is your word. If you can also let us know how you are feeling on a scale from 1 to 10 and why. Always like to give space for individuals, because when we come into a space for whether it's a workshop or a program, we don't know what's happening in people's lives and whatnot. And I think this is the whole purpose of the space that we're creating. So yeah, if you want to share like how you're feeling on a scale from 1 to 10, that'll be cool, and why. So discrimination is your word. Yes. Yeah, how are you feeling on a scale from 1 to 10?
How I'm feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, probably a 4.
Okay. Would you
And
like
why?
to? Yeah.
Because coming to Canada in 1970, I experienced discrimination as a child. It was the first time I discovered that I had a color in a learning institution, and so dealing with COVID, it just brought that back to the forefront again. And, I thought we have moved beyond a lot of things in terms of accepting, respecting, and treating people like how you would want to be treated. And there was it was shocking to learn that there's a 2-tier system in the sense of decisions or choices, based on decisions and choices.
Okay. All right. Like I agree. Like this discrimination is definitely something that a lot of people have been experiences, and there's definitely levels within that for sure. And I can totally see how that would be triggering to like previous experiences, especially the idea of like coming from another country to Canada, where the feeling of like opportunities and freedom, but then to experience something different can definitely be a challenge and could definitely be triggering, especially in the year 2022. So I agree with that, and I definitely empathize, and I thank you for sharing. Who would like to go next and share? Sure. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'll start by saying today I would say a 7 out of 10, and that's in no small part due to the fantastic weather that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I were to choose one singular word, it would probably be varied for my COVID experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was considering the use of the word tumultuous, but that felt like it had too negative of a connotation.
Right.
But for me, I just graduated directly from university into the pandemic, and then have just had many different living situations since then, different jobs, and it's been varied in a lot of ways, with plenty of good and plenty of bad.
Got you. Varied. Well, yeah. Do you want to expand a little more on that, on the idea of varied?
Yeah, I mean, when I graduated, it was, COVID was happening, and it was very fresh and new and confusing, and it had disrupted every single plan that not only I had, but I feel like everyone had. And so I wound up going from having these grandiose plans after I graduated to just moving back with my mom. And then, I got a dog, which was, these are two ends of the varied spectrum. And then, and then I moved out into a situation where I'm with some of my closest friends since forever. It's the best living situation I've had. And then I've just, there's a myriad of factors, including like my personal work and like what I was trying to do for income, and being treated like garbage on not ODSP, pardon me, Ontario Works, because it was very hard for me to have a full-time job, because I'm also in no small part in some senses, like a caregiver for my Bubby and Zadie, who are very old and need a lot of they need me to help build their shed for their new wheelchair, or install a chairlift or something like that. So there's just been, and then it's just been more of bouncing from job to job until I came here to OVCO, which is the high end of the varied. And it's been a lot, especially with, the personal dynamics of how do I manage COVID? How do I manage friendships and relationships during COVID?
Mm-hmm. That's a lot. I definitely can see why you would choose the word varied, most definitely. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge and honor you, the fact that you're taking care of your Bubby and Zadie, and I know that that's probably not like an easy task, and the emotions and all that comes with that. And I see that as like real like high honors, and that's again you throw COVID and all these other like elements, it's definitely a challenge. And then you as as a young person who's figuring out your way through this world, and other responsibility that you have, that's a lot of juggling. So I just wanted to like acknowledge that, and just say I see you in that, and yeah, just giving you just the positive vibes to continue and to do what you need to do. So
thank you.
Very welcome, very welcome. All right, next, who would like to share next? No pressure.
I can go next.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I guess there's a lot of things going on, but one thing that I realized is that I'm angry a lot these days, and I'm just angry at how this is all playing out for different people in our community. And on a scale like today, I would say I'm like, I don't know, 5 or something. And it is basically a roller coaster of emotions, really. But if I was going to identify one word to pick out, I would say angry. I think it's really obvious to us today what's happening in our world. COVID has really brought out some of the inequalities in our world, and trying to. I guess I'm also angry because we're trying to do good things in our community, and it's just really frustrating sometimes. So Anyway, sorry to be a downer, but that's
That's what this space is for, and just thank you for feeling comfortable enough to share your authentic self, your authentic emotions, and I personally know like how much you care and how much you've contributed. So I hear you, you know, and yeah, it's, you know, I understand like your anger and frustrations, and you know, just seeing what everybody's going through and trying to like figure out what we can do collectively. There's so much hurdles to jump through. Um, but you know, I try to remain like, you know, optimistic and hopeful, because even just this right now, us having this conversation, I think like this is like planting the seeds, and for me, it's just a reminder that there are people who care, and that's where I choose to I put my energy. You know, there is so much that we can look at that's wrong, but this is something I see as that's going right. You know, like there is, you know, seeds that are being planted, and we are, you know, creating a certain vibration, a certain energy. So but yeah, thank you for that. And again, like there's never any wrong answers. Don't feel bad for being down, or it's real, it's authentic, and I think that's, for me, is all I ask for in this conversation, just authentic communication. You know, if things are not going okay, then yeah, let's give space to discuss that. So thank you.
Mhm.
All right, and last but not least, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you feel comfortable here, yeah.
No, not at all. I think the word that's most representative of how I felt over the past 2 years is likely isolated.
Mm,
Um, and, you know, on both the micro and the macro scale, I feel very, over the course of the pandemic, I felt very isolated from friends and family, you know, due to the lockdowns and the like. And, you know, I started a job totally remotely as well. And it's just this very strange, atomized feeling totally disconnected from everyone. And yeah, that takes a toll on your mental health, but not just in that sense. But there's also, it's almost like you're, because really over the past 2 years, our only kind of window to the outside has been through media, I think, and especially through social media. It's just this constant deluge of information that tends to skew negative, because it's, you know, most relevant and most salient. So whether that's about COVID, whether that's about geopolitics, whether that's about state-sanctioned violence against Black people, whether that's about a lot of the discrimination that homeless people and people with you know, suffering from mental illness, especially racialized people, have been facing in Toronto. And then it's just this constant stream of negative information, and that's just coming through every screen that you've got, and it's really your only way of connecting with the world because you're so isolated from your community. So it's been yeah, it's it has not had the best impact on my mental health or the mental health of my circle and my family and the like. So that's, yeah, that's how I've been feeling, I
yeah,
think.
no, thank you for sharing, and I totally relate to, yeah, it's definitely a lot, you know, and that's why I feel like, for me, you know, just being here and, you know, just supporting a conversation is like, you know, that I think that helps with like the isolation, and just creating space to just you know, check in with each other, and to speak our truths, and to really talk about what we're going through, you know. Yeah, like I come from a cult, like hip hop culture is you know, the foundation of like everything that I do. So I even have like a music video that I'm going to show in a bit, but like we have this saying, like, you know, where we check in with each other and we're like, oh, like, yeah, you good fam, like, you don't give each other daps and whatnot, but it's always on this like surface level, you know. It's like yeah, like we're good, like everything's just so like performative, and I realize like the dangers in that. You know, there's opportunities where we can really check in with each other, and I've had friends who've like passed away, and you know, from various reasons, and you know, it's like I just saw them the other day and everything was good, but it's like, did I really, you know, hold space for that? So that's one of the reasons why I'm like really intentional about doing, you know, check-ins and just, you know, giving space where we can just, you know, speak our truth. It just kind of sets the tone, and it really creates this like inclusive type of environment. So I want to thank everybody for participating, because participation is what keeps the energy circulating. You know, I don't want to be doing monologues. So so thank you for that. Okay, that being said, let's get back into this little slideshow vibe. So so this is like, I'm on Twitter quite a bit like these days, and sometimes I just like, I like talking to myself. So I just put out these like random thoughts, ideas. So this thought that came to me the other day, and I was like, yeah, you know, at the end of the day, people just want to feel seen, valued, and understood. And you know, like when I look around and I see like the conflicts and just you know, the expressions, it's you know, I just see it from like a perspective of like a cry for help, you know, not necessarily attention, but like this validation, to be, you know, to be valued, to be seen, to be understood. And I strive to like, you know, carry that energy with me wherever I go, regardless if I'm interacting with someone who has like an opposing view. You know, like COVID, there's a lot of views, and I'm not here to judge anybody's perspectives or stance or whatnot. I'm on the side of humanity, and I'm on the side of understanding, and I'm on the side of having like compassion. So you know, and I'm not like fixed on what that looks like. I just know that that's my intentions, and that's like where I go. So I'm open to the possibilities, and these are the spaces that I like to create. So so yeah, so moving forward, we're going to get into some like, you know, discussions about, because I know like when I think of like coping and I think of, you know, COVID, depression is a big with that, you know, grief and whatnot. So so I have some things like to kind of like, you know, speak to that, but again, I'm also open to what you all want to discuss as well. But before that, I'm just going to get into this music video, which is by an artist by the name of Frankie Payne. He's not from the Vaughan and Oakwood community, but he's kind of close to like, I guess like a cousin community. So he's from I guess like the Jane and like Falstaff areas. So so not too far away, but you know, the same symptoms and the same you know, I guess like vibrations that take place in you know, Vaughan and Oakwood is what takes place in his community as well. This artist actually is someone who's been doing music literally since he's a child, and he's like a grown man, as you'll see in this, literally doing music since like the early 90s, someone that I've grown up watching. And you know, he started off doing like a lot of like music in the streets, but now he's like really evolved and shown a lot of maturity and growth through his music, and he's an artist that I celebrate. And the song is called Hard Times, and I thought it was like very fitting for today's discussion and dialogue. So I'll just, you know, let it play. It kind of speaks for itself, and you know, hopefully you'll catch like the vibe and whatnot. So oh wait, hold on, I gotta double check something, because I know with Zoom I have to optimize the video and sharing sound. Okay, there we go. Whoops. My sound. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right, you all can see that, correct?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, perfect. All right, here we go.
I am a proletarian. I am the people. I'm check it. Check it. Yeah.
This is Frankie Payne music.
Yeah.
Either they don't know, don't show, or don't care about what's going on in the hood.
What you know about hard times, 14 jobs, hungry eyes, yeah, some of my fries, retreat, no retreat. You gotta practice what you preach, and do your praying with your feet. That's how we do it in the street. Are you a doer? Do you speak? Are you awake or are you asleep? You love your family, love the streets. You love your kids and love the street. That's what my mom said to me before she forever went to sleep. That type of pain is unique. Until you understand, you'll be weak. I was down and I was bleak. I was staring at my feet. Victory is bittersweet. This is what God revealed to me. What you know about hard times, 14 jobs, hungry eyes, yeah, some of my fries, 5-5, half on life, cops outside, wrong go right, hard times, 3 court days, can't go out, it's not safe, 9-5, work so hard, still get loud, oh my God. I hope you're good, I hope you're blessed. I wish you more and never less. Even though you gave me disrespect. I love you, I could never wish you death. I know the east, I know the west. I got remorse but not regret. Had to fight for every single step. And those we lost along the way I won't forget. Everything's for a reason, like a test. Be negative and negative or manifest. Never played checkers when it's chess. I seen OGs get it for less. And I ain't even break a sweat. On my circle, yeah, I'm placing all my bets. No stress, I'm paying off my debts. Wake up feeling refreshed. What you know about hard times, 14 jobs, hungry eyes, yeah, some of my fries, 5-5, half on life, cops outside, wrong go right, hard times, 3 court days, can't go out, it's not safe, 9-5, work so hard, still get loud, oh my God.
Okay. All right, that's a little vibe, you know. Gotta bring hip hop everywhere I go, you know, especially
Yeah.
when I get the opportunity to show something that's not what you typically would get on the mainstream or the typical sound that has been plaguing hip hop. That literally does the opposite of this. I like to just show something different. But before I continue, I'm just curious to know what are some thoughts and feelings about this particular song, like anything that came to mind in your reflections or feelings. Please share. Maybe we can just go around real quick.
I want to ask a question.
Sure.
Did I see my community in there? I think there were a couple of shots.
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, on the corner of Vaughan and Northcliffe. There's a store there.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's a school nearby. And anyway.
Okay. Hey,
Yeah.
I mean, you know the community, so I take your word for it. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
But what are some what would you think about the video?
I loved it. I thought it really drew me in. Yeah, I don't know what it was, the vibe. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I just really liked it. It was, it is hard times, right? And, but it's got hope too. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else would like to share?
I really enjoyed the sincerity of it. And one thing I look for personally in music is just that authentic kind of right from the soul kind of vibe, because
Yes.
it's, I'll even give a lot of songs, not that this is the case here, but sometimes I'll even give a song a pass in terms of the melody or the beat or the lyrics, maybe the rhyme scheme's a little iffy if it's like really coming from the heart. So this had that in spades, and as Bill said, it really did draw me in as a consequence.
Nice. Beautiful. Cool. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share?
I just want to say that it just reminded me of the experience and possibility of time to come.
Well, you're kind of chippy right now. Can't. You got to speak a little closer to the mic or something.
Reality.
We can't
Can't
really
hear you, prophetess. Can't hear you.
Oh, I guess she'll come back. Okay. Anybody else would like to share thoughts and feelings? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So it just made me wish that there were more people attending, especially youth in the community who I think could really, to your point, use an alternative to the sound and the content that is sort of plaguing hip hop at the moment.
Yeah.
And also somebody who can speak directly to their experiences, because I was recently part of a working group for health and safety in the community that was focused on gathering the perspectives of youth and their experiences of safety and feeling unsafe. And I think this speaks to a lot of what we heard from young men in the community. And I wish that they were here to hear this and to know that there is an artist that is not only speaking to what they're experiencing, but has been exactly there, that is part of this community or part of an adjacent community. And yeah, that's what it brought to mind.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And Frankie Payne, like I said, he has a very, very interesting story. And I know that I'll be interviewing him for like one of my podcasts a little bit later though. But yeah, he is someone who's very like accessible, and I could definitely connect, and we could do something else in the future. And I think this is why like I wanted this to be recorded, so at least there's like documentation, and it could be shown later on, and just as an example of like the potential. Maybe in the future we could do a forum. I know quite a bit of artists that have no issue speaking their authentic self and talking about the things that they've gone through, and any way that they can do to like empower the community, especially the young folks who are impressionable minds and that are really just looking for a sense of belonging. It's really what it boils down to. But yeah, so I thank you for that feedback. I'll definitely let him know that I used this video in a workshop, and he would be pleased to hear that kind of feedback, because I know that's like the headspace that he's in right now, and I think like these are the artists that need to be celebrated. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. All right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So sorry, you couldn't hear me earlier.
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Yes. So the video just is a reminder that in this life journey, we're going to experience hard times. And we just have to be put a positive twist to it and not allow those hard times to make us bitter, angry, and give up on life even. And some of us have. So we just have to live for those who are to show them that, yeah, you can, number one, overcome, and you can be resilient with a lot of support. And it's just a matter of how do you access those support is key to weather the storms of hard time.
Powerful. Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like inevitable, but together, we can get through it. Like I think building community and creating spaces to understand and holding space for each other definitely helps the process. So I may not have all the answers, but I do know that like creating space for community is very helpful. So ready then. So let me see what we got here. Moving right along. Okay, so this is like this other meme. Like as you can see, like I like using memes a lot because a lot of my workshops are really like geared towards like young people, and I realized that young people spend a lot of time on social media, like TikTok, Instagram, and so on and so forth. And I started realizing, I'm like, okay, well, I might as well just like kind of use their I guess like language, if you will, if I'm going to communicate, and also like showing them that, hey, like these platforms can be used for a lot of foolishness, but it can also be used for a lot of empowerment. Like I found some incredible, like, what do you call it, like pages to follow and whatnot. So I'm always like referencing, and it just, keeps things interactive and cool. So this is something that, I think is a great thing to like kind of outline, when it comes to hard times, like I think we're all like, receptible to, depression. And this, meme here kind of like outlines, some of the warning signs. So, like, self-isolating from people you care about. I've definitely, I can relate to actually like every one of these points actually, because I know like when I feel like I'm going through like a lot of stuff, like I don't want to be around people. I feel like it might be like burdening, loved ones, or not to mention like me, because I'm, seen as a community leader and whatnot. And God forbid I show like weakness, I got to be strong for everybody. So, I go on my like cocoon until I feel a little better or whatever. This next one says, spending extra money to source errands out when you are too fatigued to do so. Definitely, like eating out and spending money on Popeyes and all kinds of stuff when I should be cooking, so these are things that I feel kind of contribute to that. Decline in personal care, that's normal. Could even just be as simple as like taking a shower, and just doing other things that are, based on like, personal hygiene or just your regular routine. A change in sleep patterns that is distressing for sure. During COVID, I've been there, waking up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then just like wide awake till like 4, and then going back to sleep, but then I have to like wake up at like 7 to like make sure like my kids are going to school and things of that nature, and then just being totally off, and then taking a nap during the day. I'm someone that I work from home as well. A lot of my schooling and things are like virtual, so it's interesting. It is a lot to like pay attention to. I see this other one says lack of passion for activities you normally would enjoy. For sure, definitely been there. Brain fog, forgetfulness, falling behind on household duties. Yes, I've definitely experienced a lot of that, like just not washing dishes or like making up my bed, and just being like, hey, just I'll get to it. And then it's like a week later. It's like, okay. And then shame of feeling too negative or not enough. I feel like we've all have experienced this at some point, or maybe some of us are still continuing to feel this. But I think this goes back to like the original meme that I posted in the beginning about saying like, it's okay to feel these experiences, and to, I know it's hard because sometimes when we're in it, it's like there's something wrong with us, or like what can we do? But just like what Prophetess was mentioned about, like hard times is something that is part of our experience. Like, I don't know, I guess like life, we need like contrast or something, but these are just like, things I think like to keep an eye out for, because I have this other like post where it shows just the different like levels of emotions, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Let me see what else I got here. This was like another interesting post that I saw as well, which was like high functioning depression. And I definitely could relate to this. And I'm curious if any of you all could relate to these ones as well. Because like I mentioned before, being in this position of a community leader, youth advocate, and so on and so forth. And, people look to me as like that guy to, who's always logical and grounded and, earth sign, Virgo, all of that. But on the other side, it's like, yeah, there's, oftentimes there's things that are happening beneath the surface. So this one right here where it says, like what people see is like reaching career goals. Like people see me, it's like, oh, you're always doing these speaking engagements and working with the youth, and congratulations and whatnot. And, a lot of times it's like a distraction for me, like dealing with what I really need to deal with, whether that's like certain aspects of my own mental health and capabilities, and and then sometimes, it's a praise for accomplishments, like what people see, like you get all that, but then sometimes inside, like, I'm like, I don't feel like an expert at times, it's, even someone who's working in community for so long, it's like I don't even know if I have all the answers sometimes, and there's like this pressure, it's performative pressure of like being like the expert and professional, and there's times where I don't feel like I'm professional. I'm wearing a sweater right now. Like part of me actually thought about putting on a blazer before this presentation, but I was like, you know what? Let me just be myself. Let me just chill. So and then this one, says have it all, but then also feeling like, so empty. I've definitely experienced that as well. Appear to be motivated and passionate, and then it's like I'm not sure what I love anymore. Again, during COVID, I went through a lot of these emotions, for sure. Doing, like Stolen from Africa, I've been, doing this since like 2004. So it's like almost like 10 years now, and what have you. And I still question, it's like, am I even doing anything? Like, does this even work anymore? Does this even matter? Like, why do I even care so much? Like, like I go through these narratives in my head, like why can't I just be like a regular guy who just like, works a regular 9 to 5, goes home, watches Netflix, wakes up in the morning, repeats the cycle, and then that's it. But no, I got to make my life complicated, and I got to be like, I got to care. So, but I think it's just like the awareness and just being okay with that. And what has helped me is just being in the space where I can talk more about it openly. If this was maybe like 2 years ago, I wouldn't feel comfortable expressing like this and being this vulnerable. But what has helped me is just being like, hey, look, like I go through it too. Like I'm just high functional. So, but like I said, having creating space for dialogue and talking about it, I think is like very, very helpful, and it's a release, instead of like keeping things in. So that being said, like I see a hand up. Maybe we can circulate, and maybe there's anything that resonated, anything that I said, could you relate to it? Please definitely share. But yes, Prophetess, go ahead.
Wow, I just have an interesting question for you during COVID. As a youth worker, community worker, how do you cope with vicarious trauma? Because that's a big deal for like people who are in that industry, and how it affects, like, how this isolation and all these changes have really affected someone in your position.
Yeah, I take a lot for like well, okay, one thing I've learned over COVID is really the importance of taking like self-care as a priority. So there is like a lot of experiences that I've heard from, whether my youth, homelessness, or even dealing with like suicide, and just so much like things. To be honest, like part of me is like numb to it, because I've experienced it for so long, being just like a youth worker and seeing so much like stuff. A degree of it for me becomes I become numb to it. But then another aspect of it is like journaling, having some type of like creative outlet, some type of like, for me in my case, it's like an artistic expression, just to kind of like let go of the things that I'm holding within me. Because yeah, like, vicarious trauma is like you're collecting all of this information, and it has to go somewhere. Like energy has to move, so I know for me, on top of like the artistic expressions, like running, that's one of the reasons why I started, just like jogging. Anyone who knows me, I do the Scotiabank 5K run every year. Well, before COVID, but I'm going to get back into it this year and whatnot. And that was part of my release, just running, and just what comes with that, it's all I can explain, really just like this release. So having like moments for self-care, I like having baths, like just sitting in water, playing some music and just doing nothing. And just kind of visualizing like the release of all these things, and being mindful of like not taking on other people's like energies. Sometimes I feel like as youth workers, we have what they call like the savior's complex. We want to put our cape on and just save everybody, like, and I've learned that you can't really do that. But what we can do is find ways to like empower and try to like, find ways to support, but also create like boundaries as well. I know for me, like I don't, like, unless it's like an emergency, I don't really answer my phone after like 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like I take certain calls after certain times, and because I need time for myself. When I used to just open myself up to anybody and whatever, like calls happen at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, when I'm just trying to, like watch Netflix with my daughter, you know what I mean? So like for me, like creating boundaries, and then prioritizing self-care with my way of working through it. I don't know if we really kind of get over it, but it's just a way of processing. You know, it's kind of like, you know, dealing with like grief or like the loss of like a loved one. You don't really get over it. You just kind of learn how to like, you know, process it and work with it and find a level of acceptance and whatnot. So yeah, but yeah. So would anybody else like to share any perspectives of anything we mentioned about like depression or, you know, high functional depression that you can relate to, or anything you want to add on to? Again, no pressure. I just like to put it out there. Hope I'm not getting too deep on, you know.
I mean, I can definitely relate. I'll just say that. I can definitely relate to all of those points at, you know, some point in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And I know, both because of my own personal interests and sort of career trajectory as it relates to psychology and mental health, and in my sort of like line of work, what wait lists for mental health resources look like, to Prophetess's point earlier. And there's a dire need for services and for professionals, and I am worried about the aftermath of this sort of collective trauma of the pandemic, and the strain that it will have on, or rather the lack of services available to people, and to process this, and what this will mean, to your point earlier, for the really polarizing time that we are in. Because I think a lot of that polarity has to do with how traumatized people are by what we're all experiencing. And it's an expression of the depression and anxiety that, you know, that I think we're all experiencing to some extent. So yeah, that's what comes to mind for me.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. Is there anybody else who would like to add on?
I'm just really, really concerned about our youth and young adults. I think what I have witnessed over the last couple of months is that some have given up, and the will to live it's a fight. And you end up, you don't know what to say, where to go. I mean, to get a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they have to wait like 9 months or longer, or a year or two, which the matter is so urgent right now. And so I'm just very, very concerned about our youth and our little ones too. Like, I mean, let's not forget about the children. How is this all impacting everyone, you know? And we are not going to know that. And I'm just concerned that there's not enough, you know, resources available to address the issues, especially in marginalized community, especially in racialized communities. And it's just very concerned. And even, you know, a bigger perspective of that is a two-tier system that's going on, and it's just not right. And, you know, that's just my observation.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear what you're saying in terms of like the will to live, depression, and all that. And I saw this interesting post the other day, and it was really profound. It's you know, and if I'm sounding like too deep or too like morbid, please let me know. But like, you know, in the context of, you know, like the will to live and the pressures that people face, like it was basically saying that, you know, you know, for one, like I've, you know, dealt with people who or known people who've you know, passed away through suicide and what have you. And what I've learned is that it's not that they wanted to like end their life, but it was really about like ending the pain. And there's like this idea that you know, something has to die, but not like them, you know what I mean? So what that looks like, I don't know. but I just thought it was like a really interesting like perspective, to get into this like mindset where it's just everything is just, gone chaotic and not really knowing what to do next. It's like, this place of like lack of like empowerment and just being like, I just give up, but it's like you're right, like there is going to be, like this like post like healing that's going to come with all of this. And this is why for me I always take the path of empathy and compassion, and really just trying to hear where people are coming from, and not try to not like take things that like personal, like I know that could be easier said than done, but it is a lot, and everybody has their own entry points of like how they deal with stress and their capacity to deal with stress and to cope. Some people it's easier, and others it's not so much. Like they get overwhelmed, and then that explodes, and then when it's like a multitude of issues and layers and it just comes out, it's a definite challenge. But like I said, like the more we talk about it and strive to figure out something, something can be created, as the saying goes, like was it like necessity is like the mother of invention, so this is where we recognize that there is a need, and we got to really use our creative powers to figure out what can be created, something that hasn't existed before. And that's how I kind of see where we're at right now. We're in this really interesting transition period, where we're experiencing something we haven't experienced. So that means there's going to be like new innovations and new ways of being that we haven't experienced yet. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm just open to the possibilities. Anyways, continue the conversation. Does anybody else want to add? I feel like David, you might have wanted to jump in. And
I'm curious, actually. I don't know if I have as much to add as I do to ask in this case, and I'm curious what your opinion on how much of this is, I don't want to say individual, but how much of this is individual per se versus just exacerbated, not simply by COVID, but also just in general, the systems that we're living under. Because I know for me personally, like the vast majority of stress and anxiety I have felt over the past 2 years outside of COVID, which admittedly has been significant, was really just because my landlord was trying something fishy, because they wanted us to, pay more rent or like utility bills, despite the fact that we didn't have to legally, and it became this big thing. And aside from that, it was just the stress of not having jobs at times,
right,
and not being able to find one at other times. And then even when I had them, the types of jobs that they were and the conditions that I had and versus the pay rate was all just, and especially contrasting with my rent and then my, before, like earlier, my student debt, like, so for me, like that was personally the vast majority of the stress and anxiety that I've had over the past 2 years, which I understand that's not necessarily universal, but I am wondering, at least in your views, in someone that works in the space, like what is I'm trying to frame this in a way where I'm not asking you to just solve all of our problems, but I guess in your view, like what's a reasonable approach for us here personally, for anyone else elsewhere, to kind of work with what we have or even change what we have so that we can mitigate these problems before it gets to the point of even necessarily needing to go perhaps see a mental health counselor, or if you do see one, it's not because you're on the verge of a breakdown, it's because you're sensing you might be trending there for some other reason, I guess.
Yeah. Well, right at the top, I don't have the answer. But like what I will say is, it goes back to, one of the memes that I posted or my Twitter post, that people want to be seen, heard, understood, valued, supported, things of that nature. So if we can create spaces, just like that as a foundation, like even having these conversations, like maybe, I'm not sure how often you all like connect and come together. I don't know if there's like weekly check-ins or whatnot, where you can just bounce off ideas, and sometimes it's not even about having like the answer, but it's just knowing that you're connected, that you're not isolated. I think like that is as a start, because as human beings, we need that type of like energy that like feels nurturing, that like helps us, that lets us know that, okay, if maybe things are not going great today, but I have like the hope the possibility that something can change, like, I feel like we always need that. And, the personal stuff is definitely like a challenge, and everything that you've experienced, man, like, yeah, yeah, I really don't have the answers for that. Like when I hear stories of like my students when moving from in-person school to virtual learning, and then some of the the struggles that came with that, with like handing in certain assignments, and then teachers forcing them to turn their cameras on, and I'm like, whoa, there's so much like elements, and for some students, like being at home is not necessarily the best place to be, never mind like focusing on school, and then to be attentive and so much things. And then just even for me, like realizing how much of a luxury that is, like having my own space. I got like 3 TVs set up, like I got a nice setup here, and that's a privilege, like a lot of people don't have that, and come to the realizations of that. It's definitely a lot. So that being said, like I don't know what it is, I really don't. But like I said, it always goes back to just like creating space where we can connect and just bounce off, and at least feel heard, feel heard and understood and not judged. I think goes like a long way. It kind of gives us a little bit of fuel. It doesn't fill up our entire tank, but I think it gives us a little bit of fuel to kind of keep the car running, at least keep the heater on. So it's helpful. But I don't know if I answered your question, but I don't know if anybody else has any ideas. This is where we come together as a community and see if there's other perspectives that may work. So I don't know if anybody else would like to jump on, or no pressure.
I don't know. I think a forum like this is a necessity for all communities, right? At least it creates a space for us to talk and not necessarily get any answers, but to sort of send a powerful message that we're not alone, and we support each other in our situations just by being here as a collective.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's see what else I got here. So, all right, so I came across this like video on YouTube, and it was talking about like the stress bucket explained, and just how we all have like different ways of how we handle stress. But I thought this was like a really cool like visual, because like I'm like a visual learning. I don't like too much like text, and I like multimedia, keep my attention. We're in this we're in the social media era. So, when it comes to learnings, it's wise to kind of like tap into like that formula. So, okay, let's play this and see what they're talking about.
The idea of the stress bucket has been around in psychology for some time. Here is the story of the stress bucket. We're all born being a different sized bucket. The bucket is our capacity to cope with stressful life events. There's not much you can do about what sized bucket you are. We all live under leaky stress taps. The water that drips into the bucket represents our stressful life events. Many stressful life events are not within our control. All of our buckets have drain holes. This is good, as they release the stress we experience. If we have good strategies for releasing stress, our buckets won't overflow. But sometimes our coping strategies can't keep up with the stress we are living under. And sometimes we abandon our coping strategies when we need them the most, such as cancelling social events because we're feeling too busy and stressed at work. A full and overflowing bucket is where stress has reached unhelpful levels and mental health conditions may emerge. A bucket where the stress remains safely inside is one where stress is in check and is likely helping with productivity.
Okay. Well, I thought that was pretty cute. Really, really interesting, and we kind of know that, but I just like the visuals of things, I personally feel like I have like a really big like stress bucket. Like I do get stressed out, but I think like my ways of like coping, my capacity is a lot larger than others, just based on observations and what I've seen. I guess like what would you all say is your like levels of like, I guess like, coping with stress? Would you say you have a bigger bucket, smaller bucket? What does it look like for you?
I would say personally, if no one else is going to speak right now, I would say personally, like I have a reasonably sized bucket of stress. And part of that is going through what I consider to be a very stressful, for me at least, like undergraduate experience. And quite frankly, like reflecting on this, a lot of that too was just being subjected to stressful experiences as a kid due to some childhood trauma I went through. But I don't necessarily care to elaborate on that, at least not right now, quite frankly.
No worries, absolutely. Anybody else would like to share about your stress bucket? Say it's a smaller one, larger one. Thoughts and feelings?
I've never really thought about the size of mine. I just sort of have always absorbed every stressor that I've ever experienced, no matter how big, and I've experienced some very, very big ones. So I've never really contemplated its size, but I guess it must be pretty big then.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. I think, Billy, I think you unmuted your mic before. Did you want to add on?
Yeah, I think I probably have like a medium large bucket, not a large. But yeah, I've dealt with very stressful experiences in my life. And yeah, I would say, yeah, I'd say it's medium large. And some of those symptoms that you talked about earlier, I can really relate to some of them. But generally speaking, it's a medium large. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. Well, we'll continue on here. Time, I want to make sure I get through all these ones. Okay, so as you can tell, like I definitely like the memes and visual stuff because that's the world that we live in right now, man. Everything is, social media. So if they can use social media for foolishness, then we can use it for empowerment. Okay, so yeah, so I like this one, where it talks about the 9 stages of grief, and I'm sure that we've all, like, COVID, because we talk about depression during COVID, but I do also feel like it aligns with grief, like when we think about just everything, has it been like 3 years now, or is it 2? I can't even, like, I don't even know anymore. Like, I just know it's a long time, okay?
3 calendar years, 2 solid actual years.
Right? Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah, man, it's so much, like it's a lot. But anyway, so it starts off with like shock, denial, saying this can't be happening, and then there's a disorder, and then it's like I just can't. Anger, like why me? And as we know that anger is like a secondary emotion which comes from other places, and then it goes into like the guilt and bargaining, if only I had this, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Then you go through distress, then I can't eat, can't sleep or eat, and then we have like depression, where it's like what am I without them? And that could obviously apply in so many different other facets. Then it's loneliness, isolation. What should I do without them? And then withdrawal, I give up. And then there comes to like acceptance, which is like I can't change it. But I don't know if that's the right word to leave there. Like I can't change it. I think there's an acceptance as opposed to like acknowledging like what we're going through, but then thinking about, okay, well, what do we have power over right now? I know when I get in these like places of going through all this, the stages of grief as outlined here, I look at, okay, like what do I have control over? What do I not have control over? What do I now know that I wouldn't have known otherwise? And that's my like spin on things, so I can kind of look at circumstances in a positive way and seeing like, okay, like what could I build on? Another thing that I always tell myself is that slow motion is better than no motion. So even if there's one little half a baby step forward, that's still half a baby step forward. But however, when it comes to like the stages of grief, it's not like linear. You know what I mean? Like the reality looks exactly like how it's outlined in this section here. So you may come to a place of like acceptance, but then that might go back into anger, and then back into loneliness, and then you're back into shock and denial again. And to me, there isn't any real like timeline on this, but I think just understanding that. So if you find yourself going through all these different like, like phases or whatever, it's like, yeah, like just remember to breathe, is what I got to say to that. Remember to breathe. And, it's, it really is part of like the process, and that you are doing the best you can with what you have, and to know that you are enough. These are things that I tell myself when I'm going through all this stuff where I'm supposed to look like the stages of grief. Why? Because, I'm a community leader, and, I'm empowered, and I do all these amazing things. So it's supposed to look like a V, but no, the reality is it's messy. And I've learned that, part of dealing with this or coming to this is just being authentic, so even when I have my youth groups, there's days where I'm off, and I let them know that. I'd be like, hey guys, man, I'm at a 3 today. So if I appear a little snappy, it's because I'm just dealing with some stuff and whatnot. And honestly, like that type of energy, like, creates, more connection and more understanding. So, but I just like the visual of this, because sometimes we don't really look at it that way. We just think it's just us. It's like, well, everybody has gone through the stages of grief in the V shape, and why can't I do it? And it's like, no, because the reality is, it's like, this is really what it looks like. So, yeah. So that being said, whoops. Oh, actually, yeah, I want to show this. This is what I was talking about before, like, this whole like emotional like spiral. Like we always talk about the downward spiral, but oftentimes we don't really hear much about like the upward spiral. So I like, again, love visuals and things just to kind of like really look at, so even a downward, like, it really starts with like boredom, pessimism, frustrations, overwhelming, and then it goes all the way down to like, insecurities and guilt, like, and because it's a spiral, it goes in like in a circular motion. It's not like linear, so sometimes if you're not paying attention, like you don't even notice it, like, because we can go from like to doubt to being, like passionate, and then it can kind of go back and forth, enthusiasm, but then you're like, discouraged, you can have like positive expectations, but then have anger. So because it's a spiral, it's not like linear. So, but oftentimes we don't realize it until we're like all the way down here, like guilt, unworthiness, fear, depression, powerlessness, jealousy, revenge, like all those things though. But I think just having a visual and just seeing this, just, kind of helps and just reminds us that, maybe when we're going through things, there's ways that we can, identify things a little earlier in our emotions. But before I continue, I wanted to play this other video, because again, I've learned working with young people virtually, you got to keep things interactive, so you got to keep it moving, keep it interactive. And this is another poem. Like I mentioned before, I use a lot of hip hop references because that's the world that I come from. And I always like to show people alternatives than what's being shown in the mainstream. So this one is called You Are Not Depressed. Let's hear what this artist has to say about that.
You are not depressed. Stop saying that. Oh, snap. I got people mad already, ready to go off on me in the comments. How dare you question my depression? Hold on. Hold on. Don't be so quick to protect that which causes you suffering. Let's speak honestly. You may be experiencing a depression right now, but you are not depressed. And I'm going to show you why. And this shift, if remembered, will change your life forever. You ready? See, you are the sky. Depression, frustration, sadness, these are passing clouds. They come, they go. Some are black, some are white. Sometimes they pepper the sky, and sometimes they fill the sky. But they always come and go. Because they, even though they seem like it, are not the sky. If they were, then when they went, the sky would go too. And the sky is always there. So likewise, if frustration, depression, and sadness were you, then when they went, you would go. But that's not what happens, is it? But no, you are always here. You are that which these things appear in front of. You are the witness, the perceiver of depression. And that which perceives depression is not depressed. See, imagine this remote control is depression. So you got you, and then you got depression. Depression comes, it goes, it comes, it stays for a while, it goes. But you are always here. Big problems come when you start to identify as depression. Never identify with that which comes and goes. Now pause the video right now and take some time with this. This is life-changing. There's an old saying, before enlightenment, I was depressed. After enlightenment, still depressed. But it's totally different now. I no longer identify with the depression. I realize that it wasn't me. I observe it, allow it to come and go without resisting it. This is freedom. This is truth. You are greater than anything that comes and goes. Peace.
Okay. Any thoughts and perspectives on that one there?
Powerful.
Powerful, yes, yes.
Yeah, powerful. Yeah.
I think it's a good, oh, sorry, no, please don't let me interrupt.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's a very interesting framing device that is a very succinct way to get the concept across that I hadn't heard before.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I like the idea that it, you know, comes and goes. And, you know, this kind of reminds me of the saying where it's like, you know, like our experiences like are part of our journey, but not part of our identity. You know, and oftentimes like we take that on as our identity, but no, it's like part of our journey. So we can acknowledge it, see it for what it is, and not have this like binding, like, you know, relationship with it. It's like, yeah, this is something that comes and goes, and, you know, you recognize what it is. And I, like I said, like, you know, creating spaces to like talk about it and to like process and to like release like these thoughts and emotions as opposed to keeping them to ourselves is a really powerful thing. Because this kind of like leads to this, you know, like positive and negative like self-talk, you know, and like the power in that. And there's this other meme, because again, you know, like, sorry, I work with young people, man, so I got to keep things really like interactive, engaging. Otherwise, they'll like start playing Xbox or something like on the, oops. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so yeah, like negative self-talk, and this helps, like, you know, which is about like shifting the perspective and just our language. Like language is so important, you know, because like our thoughts is like, you know, is like the beginnings of like manifestations, you know, because like thoughts like, you know, lead to actions and then habits and so on and so forth. So so negative self-talk, we can just go through this real quick. Negative self-talk, man, I should be doing better. It's too much change. I feel like an imposter. I'm too old for this. So positive self-talk, you know, when it comes to negative, in contrast to I should be doing better, I'm doing the best that I can. You know, just like even reading that out loud just like feels good. You know, yeah, it's just too much change. Let's take a chance. You know, and I'm sure we can think of like other like positive like self-talks. So I feel like an imposter. I have earned my seat at the table. You know, I definitely like relate to this one sometimes, because sometimes the spaces that I get invited to, I'm like, how am I even here? Like, how am I getting invited to like the school board, to, you know, where teachers and principals are picking my brain on youth empowerment? It's like, whoa, but, you know, I got to remember that I've earned this. You know, I got invited to these spaces, and just to say thank you. You know, negative self-talk, I'm too old for this. And then I get to design the timing of my life. So these are like, you know, real simple examples of that, which I think are really like powerful. I know in the interest of time, we're coming towards the end. Types of coping skills that seem to be really powerful. And obviously there's a lot more, but, you know, it always helps to have like some like visual representation. So emotional awareness, tools for identifying and expressing feelings, examples like journaling. I mentioned that I, you know, do like, you know, music and other like creative responses, which help me just to kind of get it out. And even just talking, I do a lot of podcasts, I talk with a lot of friends, and that helps me to get all the stuff that's, you know, stuck in my head out. And let's see here, distraction. So tools for taking your mind off the problem. So there's like reading, puzzles, exercising, crafts. These are great like mental exercises, which I like. Puzzles are great. I love board games. That's such a great way to spend time with people as opposed to don't get me wrong, I like watching Netflix and other, streaming platforms, but the classic board games, like there's just something about that, like, connection, which is really cool. Grounding, so tools for centering yourself and staying present, i.e. Meditation, yoga, five senses check-in, which is great. Self-soothing, so tools for comforting yourself through your five senses. So example, like music, bubble baths, stress balls, candles, self-care, doing things that make you feel good. Cognitive challenges, so tools for pushing back against negative thoughts, like what are the facts, and questioning, doing some research, getting other perspectives and seeing things that's going on. Crisis planning, I think this is a really important one too. Tools for staying safe when coping skills aren't enough, like crisis line, safety plan, therapist, 911. This can also include, just like loved ones, creating spaces that we're creating right now for conversations and dialogue, and others. I don't know if anybody else has any other like coping skills that maybe like work for you. Maybe there's some things that you can think of that you have applied that maybe it wasn't on the list, and things that I would like to know too. So when you are going through stuff, like what is like, I guess, like coping and healing look like for you when you're going through stuff? Like what has worked?
So I play the banjo, and it's a great distraction.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to see that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah, it's because I try to push myself to learn something new every time, or to get better at one thing every time I practice.
Nice.
And when I do that, I'm totally focused on it, and everything else just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
It's great, and it's nice. It's music, it's like, it's great.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, music
Yeah.
is healing.
Yeah. So, and I'm really, anyway,
Yeah.
I'm very proud of learning the banjo. It's the only really authentic North American instrument. It was brought over by slaves from Africa, and it was adopted by poor white folks in southern US.
Wow.
And it became it was a connection between slaves and poor white folks. And then after slavery, it was, it grew and it became something else. But yeah, so I'm very proud to play the banjo, actually.
Oh wow. Like I was not aware of like the historical context. That's pretty cool, because I mean, the history, especially, that we're talking like the Jim Crow era, and even like before that, after like slavery, there was a time where like, like blacks, Jewish, Irish, like we're all in the same kind of category, you know what I mean? But that's a whole other topic, which we'll save for another day.
Yeah.
But that's cool though. Like, and also too, as you're describing, like with the banjo and playing it, it sounds like it gives you like a sense of accomplishment as well, which is, now we're talking about like dopamine and serotonin and things of that nature, within ourselves, so I think that is a very important thing, so for when we're talking about like coping skills, it's like, what could we do that can give us like a sense of accomplishment, to feel that like we're doing something? So even like making up your bed in the morning, which I admit I'm not like the best at all the time, but that starts, that's a great start of a sense of accomplishment. And who doesn't like to jump into like a made bed that's like nice and fresh and ready for you? So cool, man. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else would like to share, as we're coming towards the end, of like, what are some of your coping skills? What makes you feel good?
I can share if no one else wants to, but
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
but I just saw Prophetess unmuted if she wants to share her thoughts.
You know what? Go ahead. I'll go after you. Thank you.
For sure. I mean, for me, like I have.
There's an echo. Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm very appreciative to my mother for this, because she lets me use the garage in the house I grew up in as like my own personal workshop to tinker in. So for me, like I spend a lot of time just doing like woodworking and metalworking and different kinds of fabrication in there, which is there's a certain meditative joy that I personally get from that, and there's also just a deep satisfaction and I'm, I don't know how much this is me over analyzing, but there is a lot of satisfaction of just having complete control over this one single car garage and the way it's set up and the way that the workshop is set up and the things that come out of them too. And consequently, there's also just like a very deep satisfaction with using the shelf I have here that no one can see but me that I have made, for example.
Very cool. And again, that's like, the sense of accomplishment. So I think when it comes to like coping and healing and just like kind of processing through depressions and other non-desirable endeavors, like finding something that you enjoy doing that makes you feel good, and that gives like a sense of accomplishment. Like, you're learning a new skill, like you do something and you have the product, you can look at it and be like, I made this, or I did that. I think that's a really helpful thing for transforming emotions. Cool. Anybody else would like to share before we wrap up? Okay, well, that being said, I see that we have come to the end. It was like a perfect presentation in terms of time wise. That's really cool. I just want to like thank you all for this opportunity to share, and even just discussing with you all. Like, there's definitely a lot of like healing energy. This space felt very inclusive and supportive, and I hope that this is kind of like an example that can be projected throughout the world, because we need it more than ever. We got to remember that there's like one race, which is like the human race. Race was a social construct, and anyways, that's a whole other story. I don't want to get too deep on y'all, but it's just to remind ourselves that like at the end of the day, we all really want like the same things. You know what I mean? So but there's been so much that has gotten in the way that like we forgot. So I'm always reminded when I see kids play, I'm like, this is what it's supposed to be like. So hopefully one day we can get to a place of understanding, and back to that Malcolm X quote that I mentioned at the beginning, where like understanding creates love, and then love creates patience, and then from patience we have like unity. So patience is very much needed, and love is definitely a product of understanding. So hopefully we can keep those in our hearts and in our endeavors, and be these examples. And yeah, so cool. Oh, I see Bill has a hand up. Yes, go ahead, brother.
So thank you so much, Neil. I love your energy, and I think it's any youth that has you as a youth worker is a lucky person. So but I especially like your energy and your optimism about life, despite all the struggles that we all have. And so thank you for coming out with us tonight.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe as we close, maybe you all can like share maybe like one word that comes to mind. I know we had our intros, and now like what's like one word that you would like close with in this space here?
Support.
Okay, support. Perfect. Who'd like to go next?
I would take, oh, sorry, Bill, please go ahead.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Like that.
I swear I was actually about to say the same word.
Okay.
I was going to say thank you. I'm very grateful that, Neil, you've given such a great presentation, or workshop rather.
I like
just
that.
in
Yes.
general.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Hopeful is the word that comes to mind.
I like that. I like that. And my word would just be community. Like I'm always just reminded, like everything I do is so embedded in community. It's almost like all I know. I started off as a young person coming up in different programs, and different programs in different communities in Toronto like just kind of contributed to like who I am today. So even though I was raised in the Vaughan and Oakwood area, I spent a lot of time in like Parkdale, and then like Bleecker and Regent, and all these different because there's different programs all over, and as we know, Von Noka didn't really have as much programs as they should. I had to go to other spaces. So community is I'm always reminded of that, the power in that. And how, you know, it takes a village and sometimes a city to raise people. So yeah. Alrighty then. Well, I want to thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully there's a lot to like reflect on, and please keep self-care as a priority. Do not feel guilty for taking time out on yourself. I know I have in the past. Now I just don't care anymore. I'm like, listen, like I'm taking time off for myself, and that's it. I don't have to give explanation for it. It's like, I'm taking me time. That is the explanation. So so just remember that, and I'm sure we'll connect again. So I'm always around, easy to get a hold of, and yes, be well.
All right. Thank you, Neil.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.